English While You Listen podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Emma. Great to be here for another episode.
Before we dive in, if you've been following us since episode 1, thank you so much. We love knowing these conversations are helping people with their English.
And if you're new, welcome. Each episode, we pick a real-life topic, have a natural conversation about it, and introduce some useful vocabulary along the way.
No boring textbook stuff, just real English for real situations. And today's topic is one I'm quite passionate about.
Me too. So, Daniel, what are we tackling today?
Burnout culture. Specifically, why our society seems to romanticize exhaustion. Why being overworked and constantly busy has somehow become a status symbol.
Oh, this one hits close to home for a lot of people.
It does, and we'll be sharing some real stories from famous people who experience this firsthand. By the end, I hope our listeners will feel less guilty about needing to rest.
That's a lovely goal. Let's get into it. Okay, Daniel, have you ever felt proud of being busy?
Honestly, yes. I remember someone asking how I was doing, and I said, I'm exhausted. And part of me felt almost smug about it.
Smug. That means feeling self-satisfied, a bit superior, like you're pleased with yourself.
Strange when you think about it. Being exhausted is not inherently good, but somehow it felt like a badge of honor.
Badge of honor. Something that makes you feel respected or admired, like a medal for working too hard. I've definitely felt that too, like my exhaustion somehow proved I was working hard enough.
This is the core of what we call burnout culture. There's a widespread belief that your worth is tied to your productivity.
So your value as a person equals how much you produce?
If you're busy, you must be important. If you're resting, you must be lazy. That's the underlying message.
I've absorbed that message. I feel guilty just sitting and doing nothing, even for 15 minutes, like I should always be achieving something.
It's culturally reinforced. Think about the phrases we celebrate.
What do you mean?
Things like, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or I don't have time to relax, often said with pride. Even, I've been so slammed lately.
Slammed, extremely busy, overwhelmed with work, like you've been hit by a wave of tasks. People say it almost like they're bragging.
There's a whole language around overwork that sounds heroic. Grinding, hustling, the daily grind.
Hustle culture is everywhere on social media. People posting at 5 a.m., working weekends, treating sleep like it's optional.
Social media has amplified this tremendously. You scroll through your feed and see productivity influencers waking up at 4:30 a.m., completing 5 tasks before breakfast.
And suddenly you feel like you're failing if you slept in until 8.
You're measuring your real messy life against these highlighted, curated versions of other people's lives.
Curated, carefully selected and arranged, like a museum exhibit. Social media shows us the best moments, not the full picture, not the burnout or health problems.
Those parts get edited out. But you know what's interesting? Even extremely successful people have spoken publicly about hitting burnout. Take Arianna Huffington, for example.
Oh yes, the founder of the Huffington Post. What happened with her?
In 2007, she was working around the clock building her media company. She collapsed from exhaustion, literally passed out at her desk, broke her cheekbone, needed stitches above her eye.
That's terrifying. Your body just gives out.
That wake-up call completely changed her perspective. She wrote a whole book about it, Thrive, and now she's one of the biggest advocates for sleep and rest. She says her definition of success was fundamentally broken.
So she had money, she had success by conventional standards, but she wasn't happy or healthy?
Not at all. She talks about how she'd measured success purely by money and power, which she calls the first 2 metrics, but she was missing the third metric, well-being, wisdom, wonder, and giving back.
That's such an important distinction. You can achieve everything society tells you to achieve and still be miserable.
Or even dead. There's actually a Japanese word for this, Karoshi, which literally means death from overwork.
Wait, there's a specific word for dying from working too much?
In Japan, it's recognized as a serious social problem. People literally work themselves to death. Heart attacks, strokes, suicide from work-related stress. The government tracks these deaths officially. Another interesting case is Elon Musk. He's famous for his extreme work ethic, sleeping on the factory floor, working 120-hour weeks.
And people glorify that, don't they? Like he's some kind of superhero.
They do. But in interviews, he's admitted that it's not sustainable or desirable. He said he was working so much that he didn't see his kids, he wasn't leaving the factory. At one point, he tweeted about how exhausted he was, and people were genuinely worried about his mental health.
So even someone with unlimited resources, with the freedom to structure his life however he wants, was trapped in the cycle?
That's the thing about burnout culture. It's not about resources. It's about how we define worth. Even billionaires fall into the trap.
You know who has an interesting perspective on this? The singer, Selena Gomez.
Tell me more.
She's been very open about her mental health struggles. She took time off at the height of her career, walked away from touring, from constant promotion, because she was experiencing severe anxiety and depression.
That must have taken incredible courage. Walking away when you're at the top?
She talked about how the pressure to constantly produce new music, new tours, constant social media presence was destroying her. And she said something really powerful. You can't be afraid of what people are going to say because the most important thing is your well-being.
That's a radical statement in an industry that demands constant visibility and productivity.
And here's what fascinates me. She's still successful. She still makes music, acts, runs businesses, but she does it on her terms, with boundaries. She's proved you don't have to sacrifice your sanity for success.
Which brings up an interesting question. Where does this glorification of exhaustion come from?
Is this a modern thing, or has it always been this way?
In many Western cultures, there's a long tradition, the Protestant work ethic, that hard work is morally good, that idleness is sinful.
So rest equals laziness, and work equals virtue.
Historically, yes. Then industrialization reinforced this, the idea that people are productive units. Your output determines your value.
And capitalism has kept that going. But what fascinates me is that even people who intellectually reject that idea still feel guilty when they rest.
It's so deeply embedded. And now, in the knowledge economy, where work is intellectual, creative, there's no clear boundary. Your brain doesn't clock out.
Clock out. To finish work for the day, to stop officially, from punching a time card. But when your work lives in your head, when does it actually end?
It often doesn't. When you work with your mind, there's always more you could be thinking about. The line between work and rest dissolves.
That sounds incredibly stressful. No wonder burnout has become so common.
The World Health Organization, the WHO, officially recognized burnout as an occupational phenomenon in 2019.
So it's not just a trendy buzzword, it's a legitimate, recognized condition.
The WHO describes it as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It has 3 key dimensions.
What are those?
First, feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. Second, increased mental distance from your job, feeling cynical or negative. Third, reduced professional efficacy, feeling like you're not performing well.
Cynical, expecting the worst, distrustful, feeling like nothing matters. And efficacy means effectiveness. So you're exhausted, you stop caring, and you feel incompetent. That's brutal.
Yet people still romanticize the journey to burnout. We admire the struggle.
Romanticize, to make something seem more attractive or admirable than it actually is, like how we talk about grinding as if it's noble rather than destructive.
We admire the person who gave everything to their work. We call someone who works 80-hour weeks dedicated rather than self-destructive.
Or we call someone who maintains boundaries unambitious. There's a real stigma around protecting your time.
Stigma is a mark of shame or disgrace, social disapproval. That stigma is dangerous because it prevents people from getting help or even admitting they're struggling.
If admitting you're burned out means admitting weakness, people will hide it until they collapse. I've seen this happen. They keep pushing, and then suddenly they can't function at all.
Like a car running on fumes, you can keep pressing the accelerator, but eventually the engine gives out.
So what actually causes burnout, beyond just working too many hours?
Research, particularly by psychologist Christina Maslach, identifies several key causes. It's not only about workload.
What else is involved?
Lack of control, feeling like you have no say in decisions, insufficient reward, not feeling recognized, lack of community, feeling isolated, absence of fairness, when things feel unjust, and values conflict, when your personal values clash with what you're asked to do.
That's comprehensive. So burnout isn't just I worked too much, it's this complex web of environmental and personal factors.
This shifts the conversation. Burnout isn't a personal failure. It's often a systemic problem.
Systemic, built into the system, structural, not just individual behavior, but the environment.
Which is why individual solutions like mindfulness apps or yoga, while helpful, often don't address the root causes.
Although I do enjoy a good yoga class. But let's talk about what actually helps.
At the individual level, the most important shift is changing your relationship with rest. Rest is not a reward you earn after you've done enough work. Rest is a biological necessity.
Say that again for the people in the back.
Rest is not a reward, it's a need, like food, like water. Your brain consolidates memory during rest. It repairs itself. It regulates emotion.
So you're literally less functional without it.
Significantly less. Chronic sleep deprivation causes cognitive impairments similar to being mildly intoxicated.
Cognitive impairment. Reduced ability to think clearly, remember things, make decisions. And intoxicated means affected by alcohol or drugs. So working while exhausted is like working while slightly drunk?
Studies show similar levels of impairment. We just don't think of it that way because we're trained to glorify pushing through.
Glorify, to make something seem wonderful or admirable, to praise highly, like how we glorify the all-nighter, the weekend work session.
So, how do we start resisting burnout culture? What can people actually do?
I think awareness is the first step, just noticing the language we use and absorb.
When you catch yourself saying, "I'll rest when the project is over," pause. That's the burnout mindset speaking. Question it.
Interrogate the thought. Ask yourself, do I actually believe rest should be conditional, or is that just what I've been taught?
And notice when you admire someone for working themselves into the ground. Challenge that admiration.
Working yourself into the ground means exhausting yourself completely through overwork. We need to stop treating that as heroic.
Another practical strategy is setting and protecting boundaries around work, especially now that many people work from home or have constant digital access.
Boundaries like no emails after 7 p.m., no working on weekends.
This feels radical to some people. They worry they'll be seen as less committed.
But here's the paradox. Those boundaries are what allow you to perform well over a long period. It's about sustainability, not sprinting until you crash.
Sustainability is the ability to maintain something over time without damaging it. In this context, sustainable work means being able to work well for years, not just months.
I love that framing. It's not about working less, it's about working in a way you can actually maintain, like marathon pacing versus sprinting.
Another key thing, learn to recognize your personal early warning signs of burnout.
What did those look like?
They're different for everyone, but common ones include growing resentment toward your work, when something you used to enjoy starts feeling like a burden.
Resentment. Bitter feelings about something you think is unfair, feeling angry and unhappy over time. I've noticed that in myself before, suddenly dreading things I used to be excited about.
That's a classic sign. Also, difficulty concentrating, feeling detached or emotionally numb, and frequent illness because chronic stress suppresses the immune system.
Stress literally weakens your body's defenses?
Yes. Cortisol, the stress hormone we mentioned in episode 1, when chronically elevated, it suppresses immune function. So burned out people often get sick more frequently.
The body is sending signals. It's trying to tell you something's wrong.
Another warning sign is cynicism, when you stop caring about quality or you become dismissive of colleagues, that emotional detachment.
And that's the WHO's second dimension of burnout, increased mental distance from your job.
On the broader cultural level, we need to start actively celebrating rest, actually valuing people who have boundaries, who don't answer emails at midnight, who take their full holiday allowance.
Changing the culture itself, which is slow work, isn't it?
Cultural change always is, but it starts with individual conversations, like this one, and individual choices. Every time someone publicly says, "I'm not available after 6 p.m., they're pushing back.
You know what strikes me most? We've confused effort with value, as if struggling more somehow means you're worth more as a person.
That's beautifully put. Effort isn't the same as value, and exhaustion isn't the same as dedication.
You can be deeply dedicated to your work and still go home on time. Those things aren't mutually exclusive.
The most sustainably productive people tend to be the ones who protect their rest. They understand that the input, energy, focus, creativity, requires the output, rest, recovery, even play.
Recovery and play, two words we don't associate enough with professional success, but they should be part of the equation.
Because burnout doesn't just hurt the individual, it damages teams, organizations, families. The costs are enormous.
So it's not even economically rational to run people into the ground. Even from a purely business perspective, it's counterproductive.
Research consistently shows that beyond around 50 hours per week, additional work hours produce little to no additional output. People just make more mistakes, work slower.
So working 80-hour weeks is often just working 50 productive hours and 30 of diminishing returns.
That's a slightly brutal way to put it, but yes, the evidence is clear.
That's a perspective a lot of people need to hear, including managers and employers. This isn't just a personal wellness issue.
It's a structural, economic, and cultural issue that needs to be addressed at every level: individual, organizational, and societal.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Let's do a quick recap.
We explored burnout culture, the tendency in modern societies to glorify overwork and romanticize exhaustion.
We shared real stories: Arianna Huffington collapsing from exhaustion, the Japanese concept of Karoshi, and Elon Musk's unsustainable work schedule, and Selena Gomez choosing well-being over constant productivity.
We looked at where burnout culture comes from: the Protestant work ethic, industrial capitalism, and the modern knowledge economy, where work and rest no longer have clear boundaries.
We discussed how social media amplifies hustle culture through curated, performative productivity.
We covered the WHO's official definition of burnout and its 3 dimensions: exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced efficacy.
We talked about the real causes, not just workload, but lack of control, unfairness, values conflict, insufficient reward, and lack of community.
And practically, how to resist burnout culture through awareness, protecting boundaries, recognizing early warning signs, and changing your relationship with rest.
Rest is not a reward, it's a need.
If you're experiencing severe burnout, persistent exhaustion, inability to function, loss of purpose, please consider speaking to a doctor or mental health professional. This is a real condition, and you deserve support.
For those studying English with us, today's key vocabulary is smug, badge of honor, slammed, curated, romanticize, stigma, systemic, cognitive impairment, intoxicated, glorify, sustainability, resentment, and cynical.
Try using a few of these in conversation this week.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Does burnout culture resonate with your experience? What strategies have helped you push back against it?
Until next time, rest well, work sustainably, and remember, your worth is not your output.
Take care, everyone.
Bye!